Dear colleagues, on behalf of Engineers Without Borders International, it gives me great pleasure and honor to welcome you to the 4th EWBI Global Forum, this time happening virtual. The purpose of the EWBI Virtual Forum is to bring together the national EWB groups to share the available knowledge and increase the mutual collaboration. EWBI is an international network of national EWB groups with the following vision: a sustainable world where engineering enables long-term positive and global development for the benefit of the people and the environment everywhere. The mission of EWBI is to be the beating heart of the engineering movement for sustainable development, building and evolving engineering capacity throughout the world. At the moment, there are 64 member associations on all continents. Out of them, 27 are in very high countries. Today, EWBI reaches over 150,000 members globally. The engineering plays a vital role in solving the global challenges, whether they are socio-economic injustice, the effects of climate change, or the pressure of a growing population that is increasingly living in towns and cities. Every engineer is an agent of change to create a just and sustainable society.
Hi, I'm Eleanor. I'm CEO of Engineers Without Borders Australia.
Hi, I'm Santi. I'm an impact analyst.
And so we're going to talk to you today about measuring impact and some of the work that we've been doing in Australia around impact framework and M&E system. I'll share the screen with you so that you can see the PowerPoint and not us. So let's start with what we're going to do today. We've got about half an hour of your time and we'll be available for questions and answers, as I understand it, in person. So the PowerPoint today really is around why would we even want to be measuring our impact? How are we going to do it? What's the easy way to do it? And a little bit of a snapshot of EWB's impact framework in Australia. So why do we measure impact?
Okay. So there's obviously some very good reasons why I think all organisations should be looking at and focusing on impact. Firstly, organisations need to be effective, and that also speaks to about the programs that organisations want. So why do we measure impact? It's both a learning and improving mechanism, and it's also good to have clarity for staff in terms of roles and responsibilities and understanding as a team why we are doing what we're doing.
In the direction that we're going.
Yes. The other key reason is that it's a good way to strengthen our position in the sector to leverage more support. And this support could be obviously partnerships, both in kind, financial, or just basic general support and increased membership. And obviously that leading to funding. So having clear impact outcomes can really communicate to potential donors what we are doing, and it also helps donors understand what we do and how we align with their own ideals and vision. Measuring impact is also a great communication tool. It can be basically front and center of your annual report, and more importantly on your website, in terms of general public coming onto your website and understand what actual work we do as an organisation and the social impact that we have.
Clearly articulated.
Yeah, and obviously this is very important. We need to obviously, communicate back to our stakeholders. Mention about potential donors or funders, but also our community partners. It's very important for us to share what we have learned, and that a lot of that impact work is obviously working with communities. So it's a good way to share back learnings.
Yeah, that they can celebrate some of the achievements that have been they can see the outcome, they can see what's happening in their communities, and they can see it through the impact frameworks that we've developed. So that's a great opportunity to celebrate together when we're achieving success.
Yeah, and all this basically, it's all about building evidence. Programming, writing funding proposals, all that kind of stuff, it's all built around having good evidence. And if we don't measure our impact, we can't really provide good rationale and evidence to support what we want to do. So next is, you can talk about why, in terms of internally, in terms of organisation, what we're doing at the moment. No, I think I'll talk about that, sorry. So I just talked about how the reasons why any organisation should conduct impact measurement. Internally for EWB Australia, it's really about a chance to reflect on all our programs, projects, but also other functions as well. We're talking about philanthropy, communication, marketing, education, research. It's across the organisation. It's a chance to reflect and have organisation-wide alignment. And this is very important so that everyone is on the same page. It's also a chance for us, EWB Australia, to consolidate and focus. It's really a chance to have confidence in the data that we collect. And then not just collecting the data, but also understanding why we collect what we do. And all this obviously helps with understanding that we can tell a collective and strong story that highlights the social impact of our work. We are really focused on this impact measurement, as you'll see later, because we really want to shift away from having an output focus to more of outcome and impact. So really, really long-term thinking. It is also very important in terms of when we are either designing new programs or projects or reviewing and assessing existing projects, that we start thinking longer term and being impact led. So that's very important for EWB Australia, that we are driven to doing what we do based on the impact that we want to achieve. It's also a chance for all staff to feel like everyone's part of something, so that everyone's work, regardless if it's in finance, marketing, communications, research, or IT, that we're contributing towards a common EWB impact goal, objective and outcomes. And that everyone as staff can tell not just the end result, but how the change took place and how we've all done and contributed to that change. And obviously the key is obviously understanding the need for good planning, designing, monitoring and evaluation practice across the board, so that everyone is responsible, and that just helps us have that confidence and better tell our impact stories.
So for me, in this, when I'm talking about impact, it's really important for us to recognise that impact is our business. So we're in the for-purpose sector, and we are in that sector for purpose. It's our business. And so, for example, if you're in the fashion industry, you've got to be thinking about delivering a quality garment. You don't start with, just don't start with, oh, I'm going to make a pattern. Oh, now I'm going to choose the material, and they're all bespoke sort of activities. You think about, I need to make this garment, and how do you work backwards to make sure that you meet the deadlines and the time frames and have all the things in place to deliver that garment on time to the shop. So you have to work backwards. I talked to a friend who worked in the fashion industry, and she called it the critical path. So you start with the garment and you work backwards, and then you end up, okay, so we need to do this, this and this and this, and it's all lined up to the final outcome of delivering that garment into the shop. Otherwise you would never meet your time frames, and you might completely forget the buttons. So for example, so I think our business, it's for purpose, and our business is impact. And so we have to think of impact first and work backwards. Otherwise you end up with a bunch of activities, people running around doing a whole lot of stuff. You won't meet the impact deadlines you've set for yourself with your communities, and you might miss really critical parts.
That's important, and I think it's a way of actually challenging ourselves as well in our programs, and asking those critical questions of what are the major changes that we want to achieve. And I think there's a tool that we've been using, and we started to apply across the organisation for all programs, and it's around impact mapping. And we'll talk a bit more about that next in terms of how do we actually measure our impact. We've talked about already the reasons why we should conduct impact measurements or put impact at the front and centre of our organisation. As Elle mentioned, it's, you know, we know who we are in terms of for purpose, but sometimes it's easier said than done. It's a matter of then how do we actually get that right. So
yeah. So and I think taking the fashion industry garment idea, it's a similar kind of thing. You start with your impact first. And so what is the vision that you're trying to achieve, or that you're trying to achieve with communities? Working with communities to really articulate what their aspirational goals are. And what are the challenges that they're facing to meet those goals. And then you start with that impact. What does good look like? If we were to get this right with our communities, what would that look like? Okay, so what are the challenges to reaching that? What are the challenges beneath that? Why are they having those challenges? Why are those challenges existing? And getting right down into the root causes of the issues that are leading to those challenges, that are obstacles to them reaching their vision. So it's like that. You sort of keep asking what I would think of as even up to 5 whys of why they can't reach that vision. So you get right down into the root causes, and then you start to prioritize some of those ideas. You know, what is it that we can address? You know, we can't do everything. We're EWB, right? In Australia, we're EWB Australia. Globally, we're EWB. We do humanitarian engineering. So we can do the engineering bit, and we can do a little bit of community-centred approach, human-centred design work with our students and so on. But, you know, if you're talking about a sanitation solution, we don't do sanitation marketing or mindset shift or how to wash your hands. So that's not us, you know. So which bit does EWB play in that? Helps you understand who you might want to partner with, but it also helps you understand what is it that you can actually impact? What is it that you can actually change? Which part of the story do you belong to? And helps us set community expectations too. So I think an interesting part of this is, don't think, because I know a lot of you don't necessarily work directly with communities. We do through our partners, but many of you are working with students. Don't think that this doesn't happen in the education sector, for example. Like at the moment, we are looking at putting our impact thinking across the organisation, like Sandy said. So it's everybody's lined up, including our impact into the education sector. And what are they trying to achieve? And so if the end goal, the garment they're trying to deliver to the shop, is around having engineers who understand how to work in community in a human-centred design approach, humanitarian engineers, how do you work backwards from that? Why isn't that happening now? What is it that, why is that not happening? Why is that not happening? And getting to some of those root causes, even in the education work. So a lot of my examples will be about community, because that's the sort of end goal for us, even through our education work. But even if your work is purely around education, which is very, very valid, especially for EWB as a movement, don't think you can't be using these sort of frameworks. So an impact map, and we'll show you one shortly, is an image that articulates the changes you want your project to achieve or contribute to over time. And it does look like a tree. And so you can start, so I said you start with like the sort of top level impact, and then you might have a couple or even 1 or 2 sort of key objectives, and then you might have a range of outcomes under that. And then you might have the sort of roots literally coming down. Flip that at a certain point, and then you start to read into solutions. You can actually start to see the solutions. So you start with the problems, you start with the issues, and then you flip them. And then you can actually see those. If you change the language, they become solutions. And then pretty quickly, you have an impact map.
Yeah. And the key thing is that sometimes you don't want to start, when you do this kind of mapping or program logic mapping, as some people do straight away, so you don't want to jump straight into the solution. You want to really start looking at as Elle said, you know, what are the root causes, the context, the challenges, you know, and that could be quite wide, and it's a chance to explore outside of the sector, and think beyond the bubble. So the trap that people can fall into is just straight away go towards solution and then develop a logic from that, as opposed to really starting from this the key issues. So let's have a look at what a map might look like in a tree. So as you can see here, we haven't put everything down. It's just a high level, just a snapshot. Yeah. So basically, I just say it's just basically the first thing that we have done, and I've been doing with a lot of programs at EWB Australia and our staff, is just getting everyone to think about what are the key challenges, issues, or problem understanding there that we work in, and just put it down. And it could be random like this. There's no structure at the moment. There's no tree. But that's, as Elle said, that's when you start shifting things around after you've completed that first kind of level of, I guess, identification, scoping. Anything else you want to say around this kind of, no? Then the next part, kind of.
Yeah, and so then you would flip some of them. So people don't have access to safe drinking water. The solution is people have access to safe drinking water. Pretty quickly you've got some goals and so on. Why don't they have access to safe drinking water? Because the drinking water is being contaminated. Why? So flip that around and go, what would the solution look like? The drinking water isn't contaminated anymore. Okay, so why is the drinking water contaminated? Because they don't have the system in place to protect the spring. So what would the solution be? There's a system in place to protect the spring, and so on. So you can keep on going down, 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 till you can actually drill down to the activity level, but it leads to impact. And everything you're framing is as a solution. So
and then,
that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think and then eventually we'll get to a tree like this as your final kind of impact map. And what's highlighted is the top, it's the really getting a sense of what the goal, objective, and outcomes are. The whole process it can be complex, and so or you can spend a whole day doing that. But the key is that you really go through the whole problem to solutions, and then finalising, understanding what your goal is. It's a way to also dig your way through all the little things that you might have, because the trap is, again, that you get caught up in the activity level. If you start then think about all the activities, but you're missing out on actually what are the impact outcomes that you want to achieve, what are the main changes. So by the end of this whole mapping exercise, you do want a tree that does have arrows, because it's a logical tree. It's about cause and effect, as opposed to just having 4 or 5 levels of that. But you actually want to know an outcome is contributing to achieving objective 1, objective 2. It doesn't have to be, siloed. So by the end of it, you do want a tree like that. Anything else?
No, really that this might be complicated, and it's actually not that complicated. It's actually quite fun.
Yeah.
It's actually quite enjoyable when you start to unpack all of this work.
Now, the reason why it's important to really do that whole process is that projects or programs, projects can sometimes get confusing if you don't actually know what your goal is. And then sitting under that, if you don't know what your objectives are and you're trying to achieve, it becomes even more confusing. And that then snowballs into not really sure what data you need to collect. And then suddenly conducting monitoring practices, and you're collecting all this data that's really time intensive and costly and so forth, but it's actually then not contributing to your actual objective or goal. So it's really important to really understand what your goal is, and doing impact mapping is critical in terms to achieve that. So the goal, and a lot of you might know this, but it's good to always refresh and challenge yourself and ask yourself, what is the actual goal? It is the big change that is long term and a very high level change, and it might take time to achieve that.
How often a goal is something like access to have lives that have sort of have more opportunity because they have access to the things that they need. We can't achieve that alone. So often your goal is something that you only have a part of it. So you don't have to feel like you have to have complete control over the outcomes of that goal. It does help you understand who you might need to partner with. But it's so big and so lofty that it's almost like you couldn't possibly do it alone. But that's okay. Don't be scared by that. Think about what it is that you're trying to achieve in a big way.
Yeah, and then that's the thing. Objectives, and this is where you can have more influence over these changes because they are achievable, and that's what the purpose of having an objective is, that they are achievable. So these are big changes as well, but you can expect the project or program to directly contribute to this. But obviously to achieve the objectives, you need some clear outcomes. And that impact mapping is important to distinguish the outputs from the outcomes. As I mentioned, if you don't go through that whole process of challenging and asking the whys, what we're doing, is that the activities can be pushed up, and then you're really then starting to talk about output level results as opposed to longer term impact or outcome. So outcomes are important because these are the changes that need to happen over time. And they will occur before we achieve the objective. They are basically what we need to achieve the objective and hopefully eventually the goal. And as I mentioned earlier, outcomes can contribute to more than one objective. So don't feel like you just have one outcome and it's just, linking directly to one objective. And that's why a visual impact map helps you kind of understand the pathways of change and where an outcome can contribute to.
Yeah, and likewise, you can have an activity that is going to impact on a number of outcomes. So it's not a linear path. There can be multiple attributions of your impact map. I think a lot of people get stuck on outputs. A lot of people go, oh, we've reached this many people, we've had this many people at our workshop. And I know I'm probably preaching to the converted, but I hear it all the time. That's what donors are looking for. They're looking for number of this and number of that, and people want to see big numbers, and it's not outcome. You can have as many people as you like coming to a workshop without having any change in their behaviour. And so it really is important that we put in measurements that are beyond output level. Output level is good progress indicator, which we'll get into in a moment, but don't get stuck thinking that that's outcome, objective or goal.
And another point, when we talk about outputs and numbers, it's also the people, the communities that we work with and that we're partnering with and trying to have positive social change with. Sometimes it's not, as a communication or just as a reporting back. Individuals aren't numbers, so we want to put a human kind of story to that. So that's why having qualitative reporting, that is outcomes and impact, is really important and especially important for the external facing stories that we want to promote. So just I think that's important to think about that. I'll mention our indicators now. After you've done all that impact mapping, it's really important to translate that to a M&E plan, which we'll talk about a bit later. But the indicators, they are the output indicators. That is always common and easy to capture. So, they are the number of workshops, number of participants attending the workshops. They're quite easy, but for us, EWB Australia, and I'm sure a lot of you too know that it's a bit harder to try to focus and come up with indicators for outcomes, but we are committed to trying to strengthen that part of our work, and we want to move away from activity level indicators and really dig deep and asking what are the key changes, what has been the most significant change to a community or individual that has taken part in one of our workshops, etc.
With your funders or your partners around what outcomes they expect. So for example, if you're working in the education sector, many of us are, what is the university expecting? What's the outcome the university is expecting to achieve from the design summits or challenge programs or whatever it is that we're doing with the students. You know, they're not expecting just, 500 students to go through a challenge program. They're expecting that students will have learned something. They will come away as different kinds of people with new skills. They're outcome level. And so how do we test that that's actually happened? Just having them go through the course isn't enough. We would need to test that, in a year's time, they're able to apply that knowledge in some way, perhaps. So just thinking about what the university outcomes are, we can sometimes just adopt them.
That's good. That's a very good point. And in terms of this section around how will we measure our impact, it's always important to obviously ensure that we have a robust monitoring and evaluation system in place. And when I talk about systems, it is not just IT, it's not just about a database CRM, we're talking about, process, we're talking about standards, policies, etc. All these contribute to how we can better collect and then analyse our data, turn that into good information, and then impact stories. So it's easier to just try to jump straight ahead and tell the story, but then obviously without that system in the background and supporting it, it makes things more challenging. Without doing impact mapping and designing at the very start, it means that when we're trying to monitor and evaluate our programs, we are basically then at a bit of a loss and not as focused because we did not do this initial impact mapping or design. Yeah. So next we'll talk about our EWB's impact framework, new impact framework.
So this has been in train for some time, and it's just come through at the board level for sign off. Santi's been working on it with the team. So you can see here that we have a goal, we have an objective, we have our outcomes, we have our impact areas, strategies for achieving impact, and our development principles. So this is a very high level EWB-wide impact map. So under this you will have your education program. You can see in the pathways and strategies area, you have your education program, you have your research program. We'll have our field professionals going into community partnerships. We'll have our influence work with sector level influence with governments that we work with in Cambodia and Vanuatu, for example. So that all sits under this so that we know that everything is heading in the right direction. We're learning, we're making sure that eventually we're going to be able to reach our objective, and together with partners, we're able to reach our goal.
And this is just the outcomes, the high level that we often just want to focus on and understand. It's good to have that clarity and able to articulate exactly what our impact outcomes.
So all of these will have indicators under them.
And this is where the ME system comes in. As I mentioned, it's important that we have an ME system that has a monitoring component where we, it's monitoring is about collection of data systematically. It's able to, ensure that we are progressing and improving and achieving our objectives. Even our activities, we're achieving that, so that's at that level. But we really also want to make sure that we're evaluating our programs as well. This is quite important. And again, we can get caught up in the monitoring part of it, but we need to be better at either process evaluation or the formal, external evaluations that we want to do at program level. That can really help us improve our programs, hence being more effective and then having better outcomes and impacts. And underpinning all this is our M&E plan. So we're currently developing our M&E plan. We have M&E plans, but the key is to having an M&E plan that is consistent across the whole organisation, that different programs can use and adapt, and that we are collecting basically the same indicators that will feed into our impact framework and then our organisational strategy goals. And obviously within each program and projects, will be specific context kind of indicators that are specific for that particular program. But an M&E plan really is basically, these are the key components that we are including in our M&E plan. They will include an impact map that we talked about, have roles and responsibilities, will have key indicators to capture, progress and outcome. We'll have key evaluation questions, and importantly, it has an actual implementation plan. And obviously summarizes all that is the good program or project logic. And this is the key part of it. This is the matrix that I've mentioned in the previous slide and stuff, the indicated impact matrix. So all our programs and projects will definitely have this. So this is really, you might be familiar with a log frame. This is just an adaptation of a log frame to make it just really simple in terms of identifying the activities, indicators, but really splitting the outputs and outcomes, and also understanding how, when it's collected, and the source and responsibility. So
I think the interesting thing about this is that you can go ahead and you've got this beautiful impact map, and you know exactly what you need to be measuring, and then you get to this bit and you've translated, you've just basically transcribed, I suppose, the activities, indicators, outputs, outcomes. Data source, you might realise you actually can't get the data. And so then you might have to go and rethink some of your indicators, because you realise you're not actually going to be able to measure that, because you're not going to be able to get the data. For example, in Australia, it's very hard to get some data from government. They just don't unlock it. So we can say that we want to know about a whole lot of things, and we're just not able to. So we have to change some of our indicators so that they actually are trackable and measurable, and not lofty and idealistic about that. Yes, we'll be able to get that information, because quite often we can't. So yeah, working with partner governments or working in the university sector, there's whole privacy things. So privacy requirements. So yeah, this is a really good reality check on your impact framework. It's not in isolation. You may need to go back and slightly change your impact framework when you start realizing that you can't get the data, or it's going to be, you need to change questions.
Yeah. And without a M&E plan like this, it's going to be more challenging for anyone to report when it comes to that reporting period. But if it's completed like this and populated, you're going to be able to understand, yeah, that's quite easy, because we are collecting that because we thought about it right at the start. The other thing that we've really incorporated into our impact framework and within EWB Australia now is really we're bringing the SDGs really to the front, and we're really comfortable and confident that the work that we do are contributing to the SDGs. But we're going more than just the standard, I guess, engineering projects or programs that we could almost probably just say that we're contributing to SDG 6 or SDG 7. But through our impact mapping and our impact framework, we are really digging deep and saying that, well, we could have, and we are contributing to other SDGs, not just 6 and 7, 11, 13, 5, 4, 8, etc. So it's by having an impact map with our M&E plan that we are able to articulate and understand what our actual impact is. Do you want to add to that now?
Yeah, we are actually aligning some of our targets to some of the key targets as well, so that we can actually be sure and report back to the global movement around ending poverty for all and equal access for all, which is basically the same as our mission. So it actually absolutely aligns. It's also really handy for translating to partners, like, the Australian government, and I'm sure other governments around the world are very much aligned to this and signed up to this. So it helps to translate what we're doing in a way that they understand straight away, because they've got the same goals and indicators. The corporate sector in Australia is increasingly focused on SDGs and incorporating the SDGs, and so it actually translates beyond the for-purpose sector into the private sector now. And so we're able to sort of line up with our corporate partners around some of this work. So it's a very useful tool for communication, as well as for tracking, and for being part of the global movement for change.
Yeah, we really, as we incorporate this into our impact framework, so we're not just looking at the high level, we're actually digging deep into the targets that sit within these goals and the indicators. So we're identifying the most relevant targets. And that's a good exercise. I highly recommend to actually spend time to look at the actual goals and not just the icons or just the goal itself, but the targets. Now, come near the end, but I thought give you a kind of an example of a current program. It's called Sanitation in Challenging Environments, and this is being delivered through our international program and specifically in Vanuatu. So over the past year in Vanuatu, EWB Australia's had a field professional placed there who's been supporting the sanitation and enterprise teams in Port Vila, which is the capital of Vanuatu, around new technical skills for installation and maintenance in peri-urban areas. Now, this is a very, very good project, getting really good outcomes. But this is just an example of, I guess, how we link to the SDGs. And if we just look at the surface of the project, and if it's just around, water and sanitation, we can easily say that this project is contributing directly to clean water and sanitation. But because we understand the project and we're analysing what the actual impact outcomes are, we then start looking at it, okay, well, actually, the project is actually really working closely with the Ministry of Health there, especially the Ministry of Environmental Health, and it's actually contributing more than just clean water and sanitation. It's contributing to goal SDG 17 around partnerships for the goals, but specifically around capacity development and policy and standards. So, that's a really direct kind of contribution that we're doing to this project. But then you keep digging and you're thinking, oh, well, actually, if it's going to, mean that there's going to be changes and influence at the policy level, and we're talking about standards and the Vanuatu health acts and all that stuff, that's going to improve individual and communities' livelihoods and just quality of life. So that's a contribution to SDG 9. But then it's also improving, their well-being, health and well-being. We're talking about toilets here, we're talking about special toilets, and hygiene and sanitation. Then you keep digging in. So the whole point of this is that you keep digging and digging, and then you can just really understand that long-term, individual communities, we know this through a lot of research and other programs around the world, that it leads to more opportunities and more time to engage and be more inclusive in terms of the workforce. It can reduce inequalities in terms of more safety for women around talking about toilets, and obviously, it's just gender equality. So all these things are quite important. So we want to just give you this an example to highlight the fact that we have to be comfortable and confident that we are contributing to more than just one direct SDG.
So, we'll have questions and answers now. But 3 things to take away from this. Go back into your organisations and refresh your existing impact frameworks, or develop them if you haven't got them. And we've got the organisational wide one, and we're also now developing them for the education work that we do. So the challenge will have its own impact map, for example, aligned to the organisational one. But do it with the SDGs in mind, because it's a great communication tool and it helps us be seen as part of a global movement and contribute to that global movement. Do it from a impact mapping perspective. Do that design work. It seems like it's going to be a lot of work. It's actually not. It's actually very interesting. If you can do it with your communities or the people that you're working with, get some people with lived experience in the room and really unpack the root causes, really unpack what you're trying to achieve, and make sure that you're actually tackling the right things. Yeah, so it's really, really great design process. We keep on talking about human-centered design in all the work that we do. Well, let's start with designing our own programs well, and putting people with lived experience in the centre of that. Have a robust and practical monitoring and evaluation system to support that. It's the reality check. It's when you actually go, okay, we've had the lofty ideals, we've started talking about all of this really important stuff, and it'd be really great if we can track this. Now let's go away and start doing the work. And we forget that really critical piece that means that we're going to be able to collect the information. And it also helps you to check whether your impact framework is going to be a realistic sort of data collection tool. And are we actually going to be able to track our impact? There's no point in developing a great impact framework and not being able to gather the data. So it really does help you to take that reality check and really go, okay, this is how we're going to do it. This is where we're going to get the information from. Keep it simple. Don't have 700 indicators for one outcome, one or two. Like, just choose the key ones and just make sure that you can track them. So that would be our tips. We're done.
Yeah.
We can go back to questions and answers, and thanks for your time.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brendan Oosthuizen. I'm from EWB South Africa as well as EWB-International. I'm going to talk to you about social media and backend systems and tools. So there are many social media platforms available, all of which are free. They provide a free form of marketing. The main platforms to focus on are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube if you have video content that you can actually share. Okay, so to start, we need to identify who our stakeholders are. So these are anybody we could reach: our members, our donors, our followers, academic institutes if we have university-based chapters, the collaborators, and corporate sponsors. We then need to establish how we want to engage with all of these different stakeholders. For instance, how you engage with members and followers may be less formal to how you might engage with partners and corporate sponsors, even over social media. There are two main methods of promoting engagement: active engagement and passive engagement. Passive engagement is simply posting content developed by ourselves and inviting engagement from our audience, whereas active engagement involves reposting and commenting and engaging on other people's content. Active engagement does open up the door to branding by association, where we can access our stakeholders' audiences to grow our own as well as strengthen our brand as a non-profit. So what are the hidden benefits of social media? One of the great powers of social media is storytelling, providing a platform for members and followers to engage us in a way to tell their own stories. We have a great opportunity to take the stories of individuals and build a more authentic narrative of a community. We can empower them to change perceptions and participate in an actual big global conversation where they didn't have the platform to do so before. Right, so the next step would be to determine the key outcomes we're looking for. We can do this in three parts. We set goals, determine KPIs, and find methods to measure our progress. There are many methods to help with this. Social media insights can provide a relatively detailed report on your audience. However, once they have clicked through to your website, you will need to rely on other tools to track their behavior, such as Google Analytics. A very important part of social media marketing is deliverability. If we establish key calls to action for our audience, we need to be able to deliver on whatever value we have offered. Without any of the back-end systems to support your marketing efforts, you're building awareness and a following without any true value offering. Okay, let's talk a bit about content that will get people onto your social media and onto your website. How do we develop content our audience will actually want to engage with? We do have readily available content in terms of industry news, events and activities and projects, as well as member journeys, testimonials, and success stories. We can also, however, preempt the conversation. We can use certain tools like key search phrases used on our website and popular search phrases from the Google Keyword Planner tool. In this way, we can actually develop content our audience is actively searching for, thereby ensuring that the content that we develop not only improves our ranking and searchability, but is also incredibly relevant to our audience. If you do have limited time and resources to dedicate to social media marketing, using a social media aggregator can actually be very useful and very time-saving. Social media aggregators essentially gather and repost content from other pages and other sites onto your own feed. There are several full specialized social media aggregator applications available with moderation features so that you can ensure that the content that you're putting out is what you actually want to be saying yourself. I would personally recommend using Zapier instead, due to the multiple applications and integrations it makes possible. Developing a theme for your content you post in a given interval can also help provide a structured plan for social media marketing. Themes can be anything from developing a discussion around water or sanitation, or any of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So once we have a system to successfully pull traffic through to our website, we need to ensure that we have the right systems in place to create value. Some of the key requirements I have listed here on the left for member association websites. With regards to membership management, there are some ways to build this yourself with something like Google Docs or an application named Airtable. On the right, I have listed some of the top platforms you can use to build your website. Now, if you cannot build a MySQL database for your website, you can use an application called Airtable. Airtable also allows you to create forms and galleries and calendars, which you can embed in your website. And this can be very, very useful and versatile. For more great apps and tools for nonprofits at a discounted rate, you can sign up for something called TechSoup. I think that you can find a lot of value from the applications that you can find on there. Now, I had mentioned Zapier earlier for the social media aggregators. However, it has far more functionality than that, with thousands of apps and possible integrations. Zapier can help automate almost anything, from accounting and marketing to automating the back-end systems and processes of your website. Ultimately, when we're building our website, we want as much as possible to have happen in the background without needing to think about it. So automation is key. Another background system we need to look at is SEO, which stands for Search Engine Optimization. Improving your SEO means you're increasing the likelihood of your web page listing being more visible on a search engine. Now, we have already covered some of these items, which should improve your SEO ranking. But an easy way to get started with ranking organically is to ensure your title tag and meta description for every page are present in the head of your website. I have added an example of a title tag and a meta description on this slide so that you can actually see how it displays when you search on Google. These can contain some of the keywords or key phrases we discussed earlier with the Google keyword search tool, but these should still make sense with respect to the page content. To measure your progress and establish areas for improvement, you can use the Google Search Console tools. EWB USA will go into more depth on Google tools with us later. I will make some detailed guides available for some of these items discussed today. Otherwise, please email me your questions and I'll very gladly help you. Thank you very, very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the forum.
Hi, this is Katrina Myers from EWB USA. I am going to talk about how we use Google's G Suite for nonprofits at our headquarters office. G Suite offers a number of tools to improve the function of your organization that are free for nonprofits. At EWB USA, we use Google throughout our office for many daily tasks. We use Gmail as our email service and Google Calendars for scheduling. We use Google Voice and Hangouts for voice over IP services. We use Google Drive and Team Drive for file storage and collaboration. Google Docs, Slides, Sheets, and Forms provide interactive documents, spreadsheets, presentations, and publishable forms. Google Hangouts Meet is a newer tool that we use for conference calls, screen sharing, video chat, and webinars. We just started using Google Hangouts Chat, which is a team communication tool. Google Sites provides a simple website builder that we use for our internal staff website. And finally, we use Google Groups for email distribution lists. Now I'm going to go into a little more detail about each of these tools. At the end of the presentation, I will show you how to get G Suite for free for your organization and provide some helpful links from Google. Gmail is a simple web email which allows the use of our organization's domain at ewbusa.org. Gmail offers simple organization with folders, tags, tasks, and reminders. It connects to external tools that allow us to extend our email functionality. For example, mail merge and canned responses. Google Calendar enables us to create shared calendars and view coworkers' availability for easy scheduling. Google Calendar also offers sync functionality to any major calendar application, for example, iCloud or Outlook. These tools are easily managed in a simple administrator console. It is simple to make changes to your organization's settings, as well as add and remove users. We use Google Voice as a free voice over IP service. Google Voice is accessible to make and receive calls and texts through any web browser or on a mobile application on your cell phone. It supports call forwarding, voicemail transcription, free in-country calls, and cheap international calls. This service allows our staff to use their office phone numbers over multiple devices wherever they are, as long as they have internet or data coverage. We use Google Drive for cloud storage. Each nonprofit user gets 30 gigabytes of free storage with an option to upgrade easily. Team Drive allows people to share specific folders with a group and manage user access easily at the group level. All Drive and Team Drive files are available within any browser. For offline use, Drive offers a program to sync files to your computer so they can be accessed without internet. Everything within Drive is easily searchable and shareable to people inside and outside of the organization. Google Docs, Slides, Sheets, and Forms provide word processing, presentations, spreadsheets, and online form solutions similar to Microsoft Office Suite. These files are stored in Google Drive and are shareable among staff and external people. EWB USA particularly enjoys the collaborative features built into these tools. You can see edits happening in real time, and it is simple to make comments, suggestions, and chat with collaborators. For example, if you are using Google Docs for meeting minutes, all attendees can see notes that are being made simultaneously and see each other's edits as they are happening. EWB USA just recently began using Google Hangouts Meet. We use it to set up conference calls or online meetings with a single click when we set up a calendar event in Google Calendar. This creates a separate online meeting space which allows meeting participants to share screens, chat with other participants, join through their browser on the mobile app or on a conference call number. Attendees do not need to have a Google account to attend. All they need to do is click a link. We just recently started exploring the use of Google Hangouts Chat, which is a newer tool that Google offers. It is similar to Slack or FlowDoc and allows our employees to create virtual rooms for group chat. It also allows for group and individual instant messaging. You can use bots to automate some simple tasks, and it fully integrates with other Google tools. So you can easily start a video call, share a folder in Google Drive, or a document in Google Docs. We are planning to explore using this tool to enhance our communications between employees and reduce the number of inter-office emails. Google Sites allows you to create a simple website using a drag-and-drop editor. You can either publish the website publicly or share it to individuals or groups. We use Google Sites for our internal intranet, a staff-only site for announcements, office-wide resources, and words of appreciation. Google Groups is a simple online forum. Groups are easy to create and share to individuals within our organization or to the public. EWB USA mainly uses Google Groups to set up email distribution lists. Each group has an email address, so this allows us to publish one email address, for example, accounting@ewb-usa.org. And when somebody emails that address, the message goes to any individuals who are part of that group. This allows us to have multiple staff members responding to inquiries easily and prevents us from having to publish individual staff members' email addresses online. Now that you know a little bit about how EWB USA uses G Suite for nonprofits, here's how your association could begin to use it too. To start the process, you must sign up for TechSoup to verify your nonprofit status. You can then sign up for G Suite Basic, verify or purchase your domain name, and upgrade to Google for Nonprofits once you get approved from TechSoup. Visit Google Support to learn more details. This process usually takes about 2 weeks. Since you have to sign up for TechSoup to get Google for Nonprofits, let me tell you a little more about it. TechSoup is a technology site that offers deep discounts on hardware, software, and services for nonprofits. I highly recommend that you browse their products before making a purchase directly with any technology vendor. Many expensive systems are available for a deep discount here. Finally, here are a few resources to help you get up to speed with Google. At EWB USA, we use these resources daily, and they are a huge help. Starting with the Nonprofit Guide, which is a website with information geared specifically to nonprofits' needs. The Learning Center contains resources and tutorials for all users, and the Administrative Help Center provides admin guidance. Finally, if you need more help, you can contact Google Support through the chat function in the G Suite Admin Console. Thank you for listening.
Engineers Without Borders Macedonia is founded in November 2006 by 8 enthusiastic engineers and students working in the development sector. In the last 12 years, EWB Macedonia implemented several important projects for small communities in the country, as well organized training courses for their members. Most of the 103 members are experienced and young engineers, and the rest are students on different technical faculties in Macedonia. EWB Macedonia is constantly present in the activities of EWB International, participating on annual meetings of EWBI, regional EWB meetings, and global forums. The founding president of EWB Macedonia, Mr. Oliver Nachevski, is president of the EWB International since 2014. From 2012 to 2014, he was the vice president for finance and public relations.
Engineers Without Borders India was initiated in 2005. Since then, it has grown to 6 professional chapters and 40 student chapters, with 4,000 plus members across India. To nurture and motivate students and professionals to undertake real-life sustainable social projects and create global leaders, we lay our prime focus on water, sanitation, energy, health, and education. Some of the recent projects that has been undertaken are EWB Mumbai has completed 150 plus toilet blocks in the states of Maharashtra and many government schools and villages. The Hyderabad chapter has established 64 plus e-learning centers in states of AP, Telangana and Karnataka, impacting the quality of education. Solar energy projects were done at different locations in India. This was done by the Indore chapter in the government schools. The Green Toilet project was done and executed by the students of EWB Sabram Institute of Technology using biotechnology. EWB MJCET student chapter adopted Erramanzil Government High School and improved the infrastructure and spoken English and computer education to overall improve the quality of education at this school. There has been a significant amount of impact and an increase in overall enrollments in the school. BITS Pilani Hyderabad chapter conducted social entrepreneurship challenge to generate innovations, ideas for the future implementation. Every year, around 250 members of EWB India have an all India meet to share experiences with each other. EWB India has been trying to inculcate social values in the mindset of engineering students and to enable them to impact qualities of life of the society as a whole.
Hello, I would like to welcome you to Engineers Without Borders USA and invite you to learn a little bit about how EWB USA works around the globe. My name is Kathy Leslie, and I am the Executive Director of EWB USA. We were incorporated in 2002, and today we have approximately 17,000 members in 275 chapters working on over 600 projects around the world. We have offices in the United States, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and soon in Uganda. EWB USA's mission is to build a better world through engineering projects that empower communities to meet their basic human needs while equipping leaders to solve the world's most pressing challenges. Our vision is a world in which every community has the capacity to sustainably meet their basic human needs. Our core belief is that engineers have the power to change the world positively through many different ways, and that we also have the responsibility to do so with our time and expertise. Engineering is not just about a single project, but it is about the systems and understanding the system that it takes to make infrastructure sustainable over time. EWB's vision of success depends on many other success stories. There must be a stable economic and social environment. There must be strong collaboration between the private, local government, and local non-governmental sectors. There must be financial and human labor resources. There must be appropriate and relevant technologies, as well as a local supply chain to ensure that appropriate operations and maintenance can occur. There must be an appropriate level of governmental policy, regulation, and practice. Community members have to be skilled. They have to be committed to maintaining infrastructure which is installed, and local leadership must be supportive and accountable. It is only when this entire system works when success happens. When one link in the system breaks, the entire system becomes vulnerable, and the other parts of the system must compensate. In EWB USA, a volunteer can provide their expertise through one of three ways. First, you can provide your expertise through our Community Engineering Corps. This program serves underserved communities facing infrastructure challenges in the United States and Canada. It is a partnership between the American Waterworks Association, the American Society of Civil Engineers, and Engineers Without Borders USA. As an example, we just completed our first drinking water projects in the state of South Dakota, US, by figuring out ways to improve the community water supply. This community water supply contains 5 times more radium than the maximum contaminant level set by the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Over time, people drinking this type of water have a greater than normal risk of developing different types of cancer. This community never would have had the financial resources to go out and hire an engineering company. The project consisted of studying the source of drinking water, which was a 750-meter deep well located on a neighboring ranch. We identified the groundwater quality issues and operational issues. We figured out the alternatives for dealing with the radium and looking at the short and long-term effectiveness for each alternative. Ultimately, the solution was a point of entry, point of use drinking water treatment unit using the existing Cedar Gulch well water with in-home water softeners and an ion exchange technology. Now the community is moving forward to receive grant funding to clean their water for drinking water purposes. A second way to volunteer with EWB USA is through partnership with communities outside the United States and Canada. These partnerships are typically 5-year partnerships and involve construction of more than one type of infrastructure project. An example of this is this project for the community of Gwase, Uganda, and partnered the community with our New Hampshire professional chapter and a local NGO, the Basoga Volunteers for Community Development. Together, they've been working since 2016 to install 9 wells to deliver clean water for 9,000 people living in the remote farming village. The community originally requested the wells as they were drinking contaminated water and suffered from diseases such as typhoid and bilharzia. The existing water sources were located a mile from the village, and they went dry during the dry season. Our team recently returned from a trip which installed the first 3 wells using an air rotary drill rig. The wells were dug into bedrock, and the team also provided training around well maintenance and hygiene. The change in the community was felt immediately in that they were able to see access to clean water right then and there. Not only was the community changed, but our members were able to see the change in themselves. They believe that through this type of service opportunity, they have seen their leadership, project management, and technical skills grow. On this project, they will return back in early 2019 to continue to install another 3 wells and more training. Lastly, the third way to volunteer with EWB USA is by volunteering your expertise as an individual to another NGO. In this case, we loaned our experts to a group called Village Health Partnership, who is working with healthcare facilities in Ethiopia. This NGO's mission is focused on safer motherhood in rural Ethiopia and works to prevent deaths by equipping medical facilities with access to safe, reliable water. They asked for our assistance as they needed engineering expertise. Ethiopia also has one of the highest rates of maternal deaths in the world, with women having a 1 in 52 chance of dying from childbirth-related causes each year. In December 2017, 2 EWB USA staff engineers looked at the water systems at 12 medical facilities that serve a combined population of approximately 1.4 million people. Users of each facility echoed stories of water rationing, the public health effects of dry season, and ultimately water sources that can't be relied upon to meet the demands of facilities where consistent access to clean water can be the difference between life and death. The engineers' assessments showed that almost all of the facilities were using water systems that were inadequate for their patient volume. To meet their daily needs, water is being hauled in buckets from distant sources that include springs, rivers, and shallow wells. As an example, at Jomu Healthcare Center, 400 liters of water from a spring is delivered daily by donkeys and stored in a 55-gallon drum, but that water is contaminated as animals also use that source. At Shea Bench and Chibera Health Centers, serving 20,000 people collectively, the existing rope pumps weren't working and aren't intended for commercial uses. At Bachuma District Hospital, which serves 250,000 people, the city well only functions 30% of the time. Because of the expertise, dedication, and innovation of the engineers, temporary fixes were provided which allow the water to flow today, but the implementation of appropriate, long-term, lasting technology that will have lasting impact on maternal mortality remains the goal. The engineers provided staff at the centers and our partnering NGO with recommendations for sustainable solutions for all 12 sites, ranging from AfriDev pumps to piped gravity systems with secure ground-level storage. This spring, Village Health Partnerships will move forward with the implementation of those solutions at those facilities. That is a quick picture of some of the ways that EWB USA works around the world. I would invite you to learn more at our website, www.ewb-usa.org. We would also like to invite other EWB organizations to partner with us on our work. With all of us, we can truly engineer a better world. Thank you.
At the end, I would like to thank you for joining us today. If you missed any of the presentation or would you like to revisit them, they will be available on the EWBI website. Once again, thanks to the Arconium Foundation for their generous support of EWB International and this virtual forum.